Hello gang, thanks for stopping by the channel. This is Crazy Taxi for the Sega Dreamcast, released by Sega back in 2000. The arcade game for this one arrived a year prior, and on the Dreamcast this was probably one of the best-selling games for the console. It was in the top 2 or 3, and it sold over 1 million copies. I consider Crazy Taxi to be one of the staple games for the Dreamcast. It seems to me that if you had a Dreamcast, you likely had a copy of this game, or at least played it at one point. It's a fairly straightforward arcade experience, and it does the cabinet that it came from justice. The arcade cabinet had a steering wheel and pedals, and there was also a stand-up and a sit-down version of the game. I guess the hardware for the arcade console was close enough to the Dreamcast that the port resulted in a really good rendition. According to online sources, the Dreamcast did have a little less RAM to work with, but we still ended up with what feels like a pretty perfect port of the game. In Crazy Taxi, you obviously play a taxi driver, and you're tasked with racing around the city, collecting fares, and delivering passengers to their destination. After you do that, you pick up another rider and head on to the next one. The mechanics are pretty basic for sure, but the design of this game is kind of designed to be condensed. Arcade experiences, arcade play, they're supposed to eat your quarters, and they generally don't expect or they generally don't want you to last for really long periods of time. What would a normal session in an arcade be? I would say probably 3 to 4 minutes, I guess. Unless you're really good at it, then you'd extend it longer, of course. You get a few different modes of play for this game, and there's a section where you can actually perform tricks against a timer, but the main game is you just racing against a timer, picking up fares anyway. That's what I gravitate towards. Every time you pick up a passenger, you're going to get an allotment of time to deliver them to the next destination. If you do it particularly fast, you will get a few additional seconds added to your timer, which is always nice. It's not really easy, though, to string together long games, but after you play enough, you do start to get more comfortable with the maps, and you can actually get some pretty lengthy sessions going as you really string your fares together. I find Crazy Taxi particularly fun when you're down to the wire, and you just barely manage to get your timer extended. Just pushing it just a little bit longer, it's kind of a rush. As far as handling goes, this does not handle like a regular vehicle. This is not a simulation, it is an arcade game. And as a result, it's fast-paced, and the car is just not going to handle well. It's going to feel really splashy. But you're going to have to learn to adjust. You got to learn how to move around. You need to know how to take turns right, accelerate, and of course, stop in time. You have to hit specific target areas to drop off and pick people up, so learning to aim for those sections is really important. If you miss it by like an inch, you're wasting time. Also, as you're whipping around turns, you're usually blinded as to what's coming out in front of you. You don't have a huge range of sight, and you can't control the game camera. With this limitation, you have to be really quick at dodging cars, pedestrians, objects, and sometimes you get to hit ramps to launch over things. Truthfully, this is a chaotic game, and luckily your taxi doesn't take any damage as you go. There really aren't any explosions or any sort of terror. I mean, yes, people are jumping out of their way for their lives, but there's no blood here. No people getting run over. It's usually just you panicking over a clock that's running out. Talking about the game sound, you get some modern punk music, or at least modern for the 2000s. And in this regard, I find that this game works a little bit like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. We have a fun game that's propelled to a different level because it has a soundtrack that matches. I like that. I think the audio in general is pretty great here. We get music, you get some standard sound effects, of course, and then also your fares talk to you when you pick them up. They don't say particularly great things, but sometimes it's actually pretty funny. They'll tell you to be careful and they'll give you directions, but it's completely generic. You really don't know what it is. You're busy running over curbs and crashing into other cars. And sometimes they seem really upset, but then you drop them off in time and suddenly they seem to love you. It's pretty amusing. And occasionally, while someone's talking to you, you're just going to turn and just tell them to shut up, which is kind of jarring, but still pretty fun. The map is pretty big. I don't think it's particularly huge, but it is a decent size. The thing is, you have no mini-map for scale, so you have to get used to the map through just sheer repetition of play. I think the visuals are pretty great for a 2000-era game. The colors here are stunning, like a lot of Dreamcast games, with a really bright and vibrant palette. And you also get a bit of product placement around the city in this one. There's a Pizza Hut, there's a KFC, there's a Levi's store, I think there's a FIFA store as well. But things are moving really fast, so it's not like you can stop for a snack or to take a look. It's certainly a focused arcade sort of experience, and as an arcade game, I don't think there's much to complain about. I guess if I were to try to nitpick on what I would have liked to see in this game in addition to what we have here, yeah, I guess there are a few things I probably would have liked, but I mean, like I said, it isn't what it was designed to do, so what are you going to do? But here, we have no noticeable characters in the game. You have 4 generic drivers you can choose from. They're just not iconic in any real sense. Maybe integrating some other Sega characters from other games, perhaps? Maybe? Also, there are no vehicle upgrades or any real customizations to speak of, and being able to change some car basics would have been nice. But still, the game is so fast, it's not really like you'd have much opportunity to stop and admire the changes. You do get a few unlocks in this one. I guess if you do all the challenge modes, which is called the Crazy Box mode, you can unlock a bicycle taxi. You can also do a button press combination as well, it seems. Some of these things you can unlock with key presses. You can also set the game to Another Day, which is a different mode. It just shifts up the starting location and it shuffles around where some of the people are. You can also set to Expert mode or remove the destination arrows and the destination area marks. Also, apparently if you plug in a controller into the 3rd port, you can toggle the first-person view and change the viewing angle a little bit. I guess you could consider these some interesting game functions, but they would have been supremely useful if they were just included in the game settings. I don't know why they would hide these. These are basic game functions that some players would really like. I find that very strange. Also, I kind of feel like it has to be said. Simpsons Road Rage is clearly similar to this game on multiple levels, but of course with Simpsons characters and settings. So close, in fact, there was apparently a lawsuit that was eventually settled. Apparently, Sega has a patent for this particular style of game. Now, I probably wouldn't play Crazy Taxi for hours on end, mostly because this does become repetitive, but it's certainly fun to pop in and play for a bit every now and then. It's a few games of this will get you primed for something a little more complex, is what I figure. Well, that's all I have today for Crazy Taxi for the Sega Dreamcast. If this is your type of thing, please feel free to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and hope to catch you on another video.